Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmitz_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmitz.
Welcome to it. Great to be with you on it. Blackshirts getting paid today. We'll dive into that. Malik Collins staying with the Texans. Randy Gregory off to Donkeyland somewhere on the way back on I-80. Elijah Herbal, noted Donkey fan, is still screaming for joy. Good for Randy, good for Malik, two guys we love covering at Nebraska and beyond. Numbers to get in today, 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Can find us on Twitter, Chris Schmidt, at Schmidt_radio, at Will on the Radio. For Will Wilson, can email the show, Chris at HailVarsity.com. So, we'll talk some NFL free agency. Where does Deshaun Watson land? There's a slew of teams after him. And we'll get into the position switch for Chris Kovalarik. And can he be that difference maker at nickel/linebacker? Can he be JoJo 2.0? Big ask. But the kid can ball, and he's got all spring to work on it. This man has been waiting on hold since SportsCenter got done. He is first up in line. He has earned that nickname from many one-score losses where his heart was ripped out and someone put a Marlboro Red out on it. Husker fan F-Bomb Brian with us. Brian, what's up? Thanks for calling.
I am so sick of going through every single offseason, getting my hopes up that, oh boy, everything's going to be different, and it's not going to happen, man. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get my hopes up, but I can't.
You're heartless now. There's no feeling.
Yeah. Even after the Broncos decided to sign Russell Wilson, that hurt a lot.
It's two different things.
Yeah. So are you your hopes up for Nebraska or Denver or both?
All of them. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid and it tastes a little sour.
Well, just don't drink it. Is there nothing that's making you feel good about this team right now?
Either. You got Russell and you got Randy and you got Josie re-signed. You got Chubb off the edge. Donkey's defense haven't really been the problem. You got a couple of running backs you found. You got a good receiving core. You were missing the quarterback.
It's the same old Broncos.
All right. Yeah,
all right, fine, fair enough. Nebraska, you don't feel any better about?
For the past 4 years, it's been, well, let's just wait and see. Yeah. Back in the 90s and back in the 2000s, I know I hate being that dude, but when I was growing up, you'd look at the first 4 games of the season and count them as a win. Yeah,
that's drastically changed. That said, I think what can give some hope, Brian, is that there has been change, and you can shoot arrows at this too, but I think you got a better coaching staff. You got some dudes that have coached and coached well at other places, and they've won. I mean, I think you got a pretty big-time coaching staff around your head guy that's clearly still growing into the job, but I don't think it's anything to say, well, it's change has happened. Will change happen on the field? Don't know. But at least it's happened with how you're developing and recruiting. I think that's fair. Nebraska's printing money for NIL. That's different, right? They're in that arms race. And guess what? Nebraska fans will not be outbid.
I'm not getting my hopes up for the simple fact that I don't want to get crushed and end up in the corner of my house crying like a little girl in the fetal position.
I'm with you.
Brian, it's all right, but at some point you gotta just kind of wad up all the Kleenex, throw them away, and you're out of tears. That's how I think you approach that. You're out of tears, so expect the worst, hope for the best, and just enjoy the ride.
I found a new bottle of whiskey that I like, by the way. Buffalo Trace.
Oh, that's good. Buffalo Trace, really good.
Oh, that's money.
Have you done Templeton Rye at all?
I've seen it in the store. I have to get some.
Yeah, it's really good. Templeton's good.
Especially
Buffalo Trace. Yeah, do that, and we'll have a cheers. Brian, be good, buddy. Thanks for the phone call.
Yep, we'll see you later.
There he is. F-Bomb Brian. I think F-Bomb Brian's guy that takes care of you and me with the supply chain.
Okay, good.
Over-the-road trucker, man.
God bless him. And, I'm kind of the same way with Nebraska ball. Like, I kept getting my hopes up because you just get crushed, right? So I kind of hear what he's saying. But I think there's a lot of things going on with this team, Schmitty, that could tell you that, hey, this could be better than these last few seasons.
I was watching a little bit of Bussin' with the Boys' latest episode, and again, it's not we're providing lots of free shout-outs this week, but they're sitting down with Chins and Frost and about halfway done with it, and it's okay to be pessimistic, but to be negative for the sake of negative, I don't know that that's how you're built as Nebraskans or Nebraska fans. And I've covered the team since college, since 2001, and I've been with you as far as what we've all observed.
Yeah. That
roller coaster. Mm-hmm. I mean, you've gone downhill, you've gone up, and a few times someone's puked on you doing the loop, right? Pick a sub 500 season. But I think there is. This isn't just another bullet point or talking point or off-season narrative that is, well, it's year 4. We barely saved our job. So let's talk about energy and being reinvigorated. I believe that because not just the new happened, because of who they've brought in. And I know coaches can talk a great game. I know they know how to respond in a lot of instances when the red light's on or the microphone's hot. But is there a BS meter you have? And I don't sense much BS with Applewhite. I just don't. I don't sense much BS with Whipple. I mean, Whipple's made enough money in his career to be taking money or losing money to Barnett on the golf course 4 days a week. He wants to be coaching. He loves going to a quarterback meeting room, developing a kid. He's still at that. I'm not saying he's old, but he's in his 60s, and he loves being out on the road recruiting. That's kind of rare, right? You get to a certain age, screw recruiting. Well, no, he's been very active. Everywhere he's been in college as a recruiter. He likes the challenge. He's a salesman in a good way. He wants to get that sale, i.e., Chubba Purdy coming to town.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying with the new coaches and everything. I feel like when
I don't. There's not an inch of Mickey Joseph that's smoke.
Yeah,
and same with Bill Bush. In getting to sit down with those guys, you kind of get their reality, and they get how the world's changed. And listen, Nebraska was built and exceptional because of T.O.'s mind, T.O.'s scheme, strength and conditioning, and depth and development, on top of being able to get really good players. You had the whole ball of wax with what Bama's got, but you had it for 25 years with a lot of red tape to jack with the NCAA. Now it's the Wild West, and it's highest bidder, and Nebraska is going to be in that conversation. Have they won as much as some of these other schools? No. Do they have the fan base as high as some of these other schools? No. Do they have the support? I mean, so Nebraska still is elite in the bells and whistles part. Now they're going to be elite in the finance part. And it comes down to getting it done on the field. And with some of these coaching changes, I think they have the right guys in position to get a better offensive line, get a running game that can crank out 1,000-yard rusher, wear out a defense, throwing the football with a quarterback and receiving core that's pretty good. You've got dudes that not just played, but played well and were good enough to get significant snaps at a team that's not far removed from a national championship. All right, you can go get into Mickey Joseph's former backyard and be in it because of relevancy and proof you watch on Sundays with the kids he's put in the NFL. Nebraska's going to be fine in that aspect. This isn't a powder puff moment for me. This is how I'm looking at it from an analytical standpoint. And I'm always pretty fair. Whenever there's been coaching changes and shifts, you give a head coach and his staff and his group he brought in, let him start with a clean slate, don't have any preconceived notions, and then let them do their thing and then make your judgment appropriately. And, Riley's failing was management style. The guy knows football. He can coach football. He recruited some good talent. But as far as the accountability part, guys didn't have to go to team dinners together.
Have a squad.
And guess what? That's okay if you got a bunch of mature guys, but 18 to 22-year-olds, most times in college, still I'm not that mature. You know what I mean? If someone told me to be somewhere that's an authority figure, you're going to bet your ass I'm there.
Right. No
one was going to enforce the rule. Guess what? I can show up 15 minutes late. That's just human nature. With some of these new coaches, they're not jacking around, they're not messing around, and there's a standard. To your point on basketball, I don't think the folks that laid out Nebraska having a top 20 recruiting class last year were wrong. We've seen McGowan's. The guy's going to go in the NBA draft. We've seen Wiltshire do some nice things. And we've seen Verge take over games.
Walker's turned into a good player.
Exactly. But just collectively, the chemistry part, you can't again, management style, expect everybody to come in and be professional, act professionally, act in the best interest of the team versus the me part of it. The me part of it's what's driving them, and they love basketball, but it's driven them to play this so they can go do it professionally and make money. And that was a monster anchor around the neck of this basketball team this year, last year, and just some misses. We'll see what Doc ends up doing. We'll see what Abdel Massi ends up doing. We'll see what Armand Gates ends up doing. His brother, I think, has a hell of a good shot at getting the South Carolina gig. If he goes, so we'll see. But back to the high hopes discussion point by F-Bomb Brian. Just enjoy your team. Right. Don't expect too much. If they over-deliver, celebrate like a madman with either Buffalo Trace responsibly or your Jack Daniels or your Templeton Rye. Fair enough?
Yeah, I like that. Apple Crown. Let's throw that in while we're at it.
Randy Gregory's buying a round of Apple Crown for Denver. Should be. 5 years, $70 million was the offer for Dallas. It's either at that same number for Randy or better, with $28 million guaranteed. This is a sad story. Somewhere in Florida, Uncle Andy, my brother-in-law, biggest Cowboy fan I know, is screaming.
Ooh.
Because he's a huge Cowboy fan, and Randy is gone.
Well,
Randy's gone because Stephen Jones, after there was a verbal agreement between Papa Bear, Jerry, and Randy, and listen, Jerry Jones did everything in his power to make sure Randy Gregory succeeded. Stuck with him because he knows he's a top 5 talent. Well, the son came in, said, what we talked about? Yeah, we're going to rework that to protect ourselves a little bit. And that's the deal breaker. Now, here's my question. We'll talk with Rick Kaczinski. Kaz recruited and coached Randy Gregory, Malik Collins, both Blackshirt payday guys today. How does Randy Gregory function in Denver as the stud opposite edge of Bradley Chubb? It's a 3-4, so Randy is going to be doing the Lawrence Taylor, Carl Banks thing, presumably on the edge with Chubb, and it could be awesome. And Randy's athletic enough to do a lot of things. He's pretty much replacing Von Miller, all right? So you have DeMarcus Lawrence, Micah Parsons, Randy Gregory. That was your three-man rotation off the edge to go murder quarterbacks. And you're not going to have that in Denver.
No.
But I don't think you have a problem in Denver defensively.
No, not at all. No,
I mean, it's not Dallas, but hey, good for Randy. He's a comeback story. He's been through a lot of crap, self-inflicted, some mental health hurdles, and he got paid. He has generation-changing money for his family and him, and he has survived. He's played 50 games in his career, 16 and a half career sacks in those 50 games, and he tied for the league lead in forced turnovers this year. He had like 19 tackles. He had 6 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, 3 fumble recoveries, 2 forced fumbles, an interception. He's a beast. Now, if he's not jumping off sides, which tends to drive Cowboy fans nuts, Randy's a difference maker. And listen, I'll always enjoy going to a Denver game with my boy pharmacist Jeff. And I know Junior and Mama will want to go because Russell's playing quarterback. So we've been to a couple of Chief games the last couple of years. Denver upgraded to get in this arms race in the AFC West with a quarterback move. And now they're also making a move with a pass rusher, similar to what the Chargers did to go get Mr. Chicago Bear. And we'll see where it shakes out. Mitch Sherman's next on Hail Varsity.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at HailVarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out. Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. An hour from now, Rick Kaczinski weighs in on the payday for Malik and Randy, 2 guys he recruited and coached. I'm sure he's excited for both of them as Randy's off to Denver. Malik stays with the Texans and talks some football, baseball, basketball, NCAA Tournament. Mitch Sherman is with us from The Athletic, at Mitch Sherman on Twitter. Mitch, how's your week? Thanks for the time.
My week is going pretty well. How about you?
I'm off to Arizona to get tomorrow, man, to golf and to grill and to pool it. And
your week's better than mine, officially.
You sound disgruntled on that, my friend.
No, I'm all right. I'm headed that way in May.
Good. Good.
More work related than golf, but I'm sure I'll have a good time at some stage of that trip.
Well, good. You'll enjoy it, I'm sure. I want to spend a few minutes on NIL for Nebraska, and in reference to Will Compton's podcast with Casey Thompson, divulging the 6 figures, the number of Husker players that have vehicles or apartments, and Nebraska, Mitch, has always been kind of on the forefront with being different in a great way, cutting edge, be it strength and conditioning or just the development and the student-athlete experience and of course, the life skills with LeBlanc and company. But what's your feel on this with NIL in Nebraska? Do you think they're already kind of top tier in that department, or are they doing a better job of promoting it or having it promoted like we see on social media or in interviews with some of the current players?
Well, that was enlightening. The podcast, I listened to it yesterday, the episode with Casey Thompson, and good for Will and Taylor to get that information from him. Casey did not divulge nearly as much when he went in front of the media, and I understand it's a much more relaxed setting when you're sitting in the bus than in front of the lights like he was last week and all the cameras. He was pretty open, and why not? Why not be? And in fact, I would think that Nebraska would like that, because that's going to appeal to future Casey Thompsons. Guys who are coming out of the portal in years ahead, even still this year in 2022, before the season, Nebraska is going to go back into the portal and look for defensive linemen. We'll see what else is needed based on the way that the last 3 weeks of spring shake out. And then in future years, of course, too, it's important to be able to, to have that stuff. Nebraska can't come out and say it. Nebraska, as a university, can't say we have X number of players, who have deals that get them cars or apartments. But if the players say it, then by all means, I think Nebraska would be in favor of that. I would caution, people who listen to that and live around here and get most of their college football news about Nebraska, not to get in the mindset that Nebraska is the only place that has this kind of thing going on. We've seen this uptick even this winter and spring in these collectives that are taking place at big-time football programs. Nebraska was ahead of the game with what it did on some of the organizational side of NIL, in part because of its relationship with Open Doors, and then also with the company ABM in Lincoln, that was really on the ground floor of helping these guys get set up. But they are far from being alone in the organizational part of it. And as the months tick by, Nebraska, if it at any time was in the lead on the resources that are available to players in all sports through NIL opportunities, they aren't going to stay that way because there's more money at other places. If you go to Texas or Tennessee or Ohio State or the University of Florida or USC, Texas A&M, the list goes on. And you know who these schools are. It's the power players in LSU, Alabama, and college football. They are going to be able to offer some of the same things, and in some cases more than Nebraska. Where Nebraska can come in is being well organized and having that passion for football that really does burn bright in Lincoln and around the state.
Mitch Sherman's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Mitch, to the field, and what's your anticipation like for Chris Kolovarik in that switch? As it's not go be JoJo, but be versatile enough to help out that way. I know an inside linebacker when he came from Northern Iowa, but now he's going to be on the outside, or the attempt anyway to be that hybrid guy.
Yeah, it's interesting because coming out of the season, it seemed very much like Isaac Gifford, was going to be given the first opportunity, the likely starter. When I projected depth charts this winter, he was definitely the nickel, and Kolarvik now is right there with him. And I'm not sure which direction Nebraska is going to end up going on a starter at that spot. They have different skill sets, and Kolarvik is more your traditional linebacker, the inside linebacker, your Mike or a Will kind of guy, Mike or a Sam kind of guy, where I think Gifford fits more as a Will or a safety, more in the mold probably of what JoJo was early in his career. And, JoJo got bigger, and I think if you looked at him last season, he probably was built a little bit more like Chris Kolarvik than what the way Isaac Gifford is built right now. But I think both will contribute and both will play. And if you have two guys at that spot who can split reps, then it's a much different situation from the past couple of years when JoJo just really didn't come off the field. So that can be good. And there are others at that spot too. The coaches have talked about Javen Wright, and we've heard good things, or certainly did in his recruiting about Kobe Bretz, and there is I believe it's John Bullock, the walk-on from Omaha, who's playing that spot. So there are options there, and right now it looks like Kolarvik and Gifford are at the top of the list.
You want to go recruiting here, and an offer out. I saw you retweeted this. I think it was yesterday, but how fierce is the fight for Malachi Coleman for Nebraska? Yeah. Iowa, one of many to go, and it seems like most of the Big Ten's in on old Malachi from East.
Yeah, he's becoming one of those next level players. I think for a couple of reasons. One, because of the raw talent that you see there, and I watched him play in person this year. And, it's hard to project where he's going to end up on the field, but I know it could be a number of spots. He could play on either side of the ball. He could put on size and be a very good pass rusher. The kind of prospect at a position that you just don't see the state of Nebraska produce real often. I mean, there is Maverick Noonan right now at Elkhorn South who plays that spot, but Coleman is built a little different than Noonan. They can both be very good in college, or Coleman very well may end up being a wide receiver. And with the size that he has, you teach him about the intricacies of that position, how to run routes, how to do the things that they ask in college. And if that's where his passion is, then I think he could be very good at that spot too. And on top of it, you're talking about somebody who has a really unique story. And, we just got done talking about NIL, and he's already into that as a high school junior. So that plays in favor of Nebraska for sure, because if this is a Lincoln kid, who beat the odds, coming up through foster care system and, has an amazing story to tell right now. And it could become more incredible, if he's out there starting on Saturdays. There are unquestionably more opportunities for him in that NIL realm as a Nebraska football player than there is anywhere else that he goes. And that's the same if you're an Iowa City kid and you go to Iowa, or if you're from Ann Arbor and you go to Michigan. People know him in the community, and it's a pretty big advantage for Nebraska, I would say, in recruiting him that hasn't existed with players of his caliber in recent years.
Mitch, your temperature on Husker baseball, much needed walk-off. What a day for Griffin Everett.
Yeah, I mean, I watched them in person at Omaha on Sunday afternoon, and, made some comments about how they just weren't real competitive. And then I read Will Bolt's comments about how they were a weak team. He took it a step farther. He said it. He really laid it out there. I may have been thinking something along those lines and tried to be a little nicer, and then he just went out and said it. That's the head coach. So that's what you get with Will Bolton. I think that's good for the players, to know that their coach is a straight shooter. And then look what happened the next day. I mean, and again, this is one win against a team with a losing record from the Summit League. So we're not talking about getting ready for regional play here, but you got to take small steps when you've started the way they have. This is not the season's not over by any means. Everything is ahead of Nebraska, but it didn't start the first 3 or 4 weeks like this team had hoped for sure. And what they're missing is what we saw on the field in the regional last year, where you just had guys stepping up, whether it was Mojo Hagee or Jackson Hallmark or Spencer Schwellenbach. Those guys are gone. Luke Roscom, those were the leaders on that team, and they have to find new leaders. And, you go out in the home opener and you see Griffin Everett have a 4-hit day, multiple extra base hits. Did he hit 2 home runs yesterday or 1?
Two.
I think it was 2? Yeah.
Solo and a 2-run shot.
Right. And a walk-off hit to win it. I mean, that's what has to emerge. Our players and performances like that, and to have it happen in the home opener is I don't care who the opponent is. It's definitely a good step in the right direction, and then they need to continue the momentum as this week goes on with some more home games.
Mitch, they had a players-only meeting, shut the door, and hashed it out after Will's comments, and we'll see if this kind of shakes loose how they had been playing and kind of sends them towards a different direction where, last year was last year. Guys got to take ownership and do better. And, at least yesterday was a good example of that. Who's your Final Four? About 30 seconds till you have a bracket done.
My bracket's not done, so I can tell you in 3 seconds. I don't know yet. I'll probably know tonight. My kids are bothering me to print them out, and they want to fill them out the old way with pencil and paper, and that's fine. So I'll go and enter them into the computer after that. But we'll have a competition among the family. I don't know. I'll tell you next week.
That's fine.
By that point, some of my Final Four will probably be eliminated.
Well, make sure that buy-in is hefty. I love it. Mitch, have a good week.
I'm going to take my kids' money for sure. Yeah.
Have a good one, man. Good to talk.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
Chime in 402 888-466-ESPN or email the show, Chris@HailVarsity.com.
Just try me. Try me.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Coming up, Andy Markowski will be with us. We'll get Andy's take on NCAA Tournament, the Husker women, Gonzaga on Friday. 2:30 tip, Believe. And that'll be ESPN News. So we'll talk to Andy on the men's bracket and maybe some feels on Nebraska's coaching staff for the basketball team with Fred. Numbers to get in, 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. More on Randy Gregory and Malik Collins, their payday with their position coach, Rick Kaczinski, in about 30 minutes. So let's get the NFL Network's take on the Denver deal, how this went down, how it shook out, how it goes from Dallas to Denver when it looked like Dallas. Shefty hit send on that thing and then 15 minutes later pumped the brakes, and that's not how it was to go.
Shefty not having a good year so far with credibility, huh?
No, but he's...
He's a goat.
He is what he is, and that's not a knock. It just he's a reporter, and
right
there you go. So before we play this sound here from James Palmer, not the former Nebraska guard, are you going to go see a Denver game? If I say, hey, let's pick a game, let's do a show Friday from Donkeyland, or maybe a Monday from Donkeyland. We get in Elijah's truckster or my truckster, you, me, Elijah, and we'll get pharmacist Jeff to go with us. You'd be in, wouldn't you?
I'm there.
Right?
I'm there.
I think it'd be great. We got to look at the NFL schedule's not dropped yet, has it?
Maybe it's has.
Summer, isn't it?
I don't know. Yeah, I think you're right.
I think they have their own holiday for that. But I think we go see a Denver KC game,
my God.
Maybe we just go to Vegas and see Denver and Vegas.
I'd be crossing two things off. Never been to Vegas, never been to an NFL game.
Never been to Vegas either.
What?
With Roberto down the hall, he's got bros in Vegas.
Oh, my God.
So we could totally get set up for a show. We just got to figure out the right bye week for Nebraska football.
Right. And somebody to work the board. Yeah. Right.
You're like,
I'm not getting tracked back here for that. No.
I am not pushing buttons. GD.
That would be fun, Schmitty. I'm down for that.
Well, we'll huddle up on that. Here is James Palmer on what the heck happened with Denver and Dallas.
Yeah, this was an interesting one, the way it was playing out. I'm watching NFL Network in between my hits, Andrew. We're honoring the great Andrew Whitworth, and my phone starts going, might be Randy Gregory coming to town. And so we start doing some digging, and as Mike said, it was all of our favorite sports anchor here in Denver, in Vic Lombardi, breaking the news that Randy Gregory has decided to join the Denver Broncos. Now, dating back to yesterday and all the meetings I've been told the Broncos have been having have been about three specific positions. It's been about interior defensive line, it's been about pass rush, and it's been about corner. And pass rush was a big need that they wanted to have. And I was told kind of Von Miller wasn't really in the mix over the last day or so and potentially coming back. And it looks like Randy Gregory is the one to play opposite of Bradley Chubb. And that's important because Chubb, remember, a 5th overall pick, has had injury issues in the past. This is going to be his first off season in a number of years to where he is going to just be focused on getting better at football and not rehabbing an injury. They're expecting big things from Chubb. They like Malik Reed. They like Jonathan Cooper that they got out of Ohio State late in the draft last season, but they were looking for that other bookend pass rusher because against guys like Patrick Mahomes, Jeff, you can't bring extra guys to try to blitz him because he is going to pick you apart. So you have to get pressure with 4. The Broncos needed to upgrade the pass rush dramatically, and they do that with Randy Gregory.
Charles Robinson also weighs in with CBS Sports, senior writer for Yahoo, and just lays it out perfectly. The Randy Gregory reversal to Denver was 100% a matter of the Cowboys tinkering with contract language at the last moment. Like it or not, you can't come in with that maneuver, Stephen, when there's another team on hold, waiting for an opening. More from Charles Robinson in response to Ed Warder in Ed's tweet. Ed, longtime insider and ESPN stud on the Cowboys. Sources say the salary forfeiture language by the Cowboys included in player contracts that led Randy to abruptly sign with the Broncos is standard to them, but not commonly used by other teams. Now, the Cowboys have interest in Von Miller, depending on financial expectations.
It's a flop. It's a switch.
Right. Well, and Von went and got a Super Bowl, his second. He led them to one, and then he was, co-pilot with Aaron Donald. And listen, here's the thing, though. If I'm a Cowboy fan, I'm really frustrated. I mean, you still have Micah Parsons. That's money. But you've stuck with Randy for 8 years and 50 games. You've not punted him yet. And I could see how Cowboy fans are hurt by this. But listen, you've not cut him now. Why jack with stuff in the contract?
Yeah, exactly.
If it's different than when you signed him.
It's fishy.
That rookie deal. I mean, I think Randy's maybe made less than $500,000 in Dallas based on forfeitures and time missed. I mean, think of playing 8 games, or excuse me, being in the league 8 seasons and playing 50 games.
It's a no-brainer.
The production's incredible. Garrett Nelson, number 44 for the Blackshirts, an excerpt from him. Nebraska needs a Randy Gregory-type pass rusher to step up for the Blackshirts this year, and Garrett's had a really nice career in Lincoln and more to come. The heartbeat of that defense. His sit-down with Will Compton and Taylor Lewan.
What did it mean to earn a black shirt? Cannot just one day show up and be like, I figured it out, I got it. You're going to get coached hard every day. You're going to play hard every day. You're going to do everything you possibly can 100% right with 100% effort. Right. That's how you get one. Being from Nebraska and then earning that black shirt. You want to come be a baller. You want to come be a man. You want to grow up and be real, not a fake tough dude or fake this, or I got to tell people I play football. Nobody's going to fight you in practice because they already know if I fight this guy, he's going to kill me. When people come here and you play here, you don't need to tell anybody, and that's what Nebraska gives you because that dude's from Nebraska. He plays for Nebraska. Yeah, damn. They don't need you. Yeah.
So you've got your culture guy, you've got your effort guy, and you've had your production guy. It's nice to have all three of those elements because Garrett's production last year, good work on the edge for Nebraska when it came to run stoppage, setting the edge, and also what he was able to do get after the quarterback. Now it needs to be better. He'd be the first to say that, but he is bringing a lot of that defense along.
I do have a text from Elijah. He says, tell Schmitty that if he takes me to Ireland, I'll run the board when he's in Denver.
I'm not taking him anywhere. I started the first part of my passport process today.
Ooh, just missed it, Elijah.
So
bad time to go out of town.
No, he wants to go to Ireland. Great. Start rowing.
Or swim. I'm sure he's a good swimmer.
Might be. Although, if a shark sees him swimming with that mustache.
I'm sure he's tasty, yeah.
No, the sharks can go the other way.
They're not a fan of the stash.
No, the shark's like, he's going to throw me in a windowless van. With that mustache. We'll wind down hour 1. Andy Markowski coming up, Rick Kaczinski. Next hour, Hail Varsity presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time this hour, Hail Varsity presented by the Nebraska Lottery. So Hooksy and I have the same bracket, same Final Four. It's brutal. It's like we copied off each other in junior high. Have you finished yours out? I have a physical one. I'm not sure I have any patience left to jump in and try and figure out another password with past brackets. I'm serious.
Like, so relatable.
There's 50 different invites, and God love you for inviting me to do a bracket, and I don't have them saved.
Yeah.
A phone or a computer or a system ago.
Yeah.
To figure it out.
It's too much work.
I mean, I have this, and I have one.
That's all you need.
Do you have yours done?
I do have it done.
So give me your Elite Eight.
Okay, Elite Eight. Wow, I'm going Gonzaga, Duke, Baylor, Kentucky,
okay,
Arizona Villanova.
Same.
Kansas Auburn.
Okay. I have my Elite Eight. Gonzaga Tech, UCLA, Kentucky, Arizona Nova, Iowa, Auburn.
Man, Iowa, they have a good team.
Here's what I'm wondering. Do they keep rolling, or do they pull what they pulled last year, and when they find when they take on a more athletic squad like an Oregon, that just who in the right mind can run with Iowa, right? Well, Oregon said here they did a year ago and blew them out of the water. Does matchup-wise, does Iowa have a bad matchup? And I haven't beaten KU, which is kind of brutal, but kind of funny.
Yeah. I mean, do you believe in the whole tournament thing? I mean, in the last few years...
It's matchup and who's hot, and not many teams... I mean, I'm expecting UCLA to put another run together because they have 3 studs. They have 3 pros. They take smart shots. Mick Cronin will murder them. He has all sorts of blue blood, high-profile fluff dudes that have been told how great they are forever, since they were probably 4, and he stares and screams at them. And it's hilarious because they get scared and they do what he says. He's an angry little guy, and I've always liked Mick Cronin because he's coaching 5-star talent in the blue-collar method. So I'm hoping, I like watching UCLA. I want to see them take on Kentucky. I think they knock off Kentucky, but UCLA kind of got a... UCLA's never a Cinderella, but they were a Cinderella last year.
They were.
What were they? Were they even like an 8 or a 9 seed?
I had the bracket up this morning. Dude, they were down. Yeah, they were down there. That whole conference, really.
Well, the Pac-12's garbage. They only got 3 teams in. Colorado got left at the altar. Oregon left at the altar. I mean, the Pac-12 only has 3. Now,
Colorado, that's amazing. Sorry.
Well, they were right there.
Yeah.
They were right there. And I think, you want to be honest, I mean, that's probably the Virginia Tech stole that bid.
Yeah.
I don't know what to think. I think Wyoming's a good basketball team.
They are.
I think Indiana's a great basketball team. It's garbage that both of these have to face off like they do right now.
Am I crazy?
Rutgers and Notre Dame.
We're going to be a great game tonight. Do you know what time tomorrow night? I was going to ask you the Michigan Colorado State game. Do you have any confidence in Michigan coming out here and
Michigan
looking good?
Michigan gets popped.
Okay.
I have Colorado State getting past Tennessee.
Oof.
Rick Barnes is 1-11 against the spread in the NCAA tournament. The man that didn't get Kevin, and I like Rick Barnes, he tells hilarious jokes. Just ask Dolman. Rick Barnes didn't get to a Final Four with Kevin Durant. All I'm saying. Andy Markowski going to be with us. His thoughts on the tournament, Husker basketball next on Hail Varsity Radio.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmitz_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmitz.
Welcome to it. It's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt. Will Wilson is in. He's got his dancing shoes on, and I think he can bust a move all right. Andy Markowski with us, the pride of Ord, standout Husker. Proud Papa, as he'll be locked in, glued in on the road in Louisville. At Markowski_Andy on Twitter. Andy, gotta love it. Madness is here. How are you?
Yeah, doing great, Smitty. Weather's fantastic, and getting ready for kind of 3 straight weeks of good basketball here.
Absolutely, you've made the rounds, man. All the tournaments, right? You were there for the Big Ten tournament. You were there for state basketball, of course. Coaching, great work this year with Pius, the 10th girls, and of course your fantastic coverage on NET with you and Larry Putney. Just fantastic to watch, and now you're off to the dance. So, what are you feeling like? How are you going into this matchup against Gonzaga?
Yeah, just super excited. I think you can get caught up in the seeds and where you were placed and who you got to play next. But the reality of it is only 68 teams are still playing in both the men's and women's bracket, and whoever who you play is going to be good, and you're going to have to play well to win. And certainly Gonzaga is a really good team. Had a chance to beat Stanford earlier in the year, lost to them a second time by 8, won their league. Beat a ranked team at BYU in their conference final. So we're going to have our hands full. If you're fortunate to win that game, you get a 1 seed on their home court, which is not going to be easy. But what a great way to make some noise and get some recognition.
Is it fair to say that this team is not going in just happy to be there? There are some goals and accomplishments. It's a different mentality.
Yeah, I think this is a really mature group. They had big goals for themselves during the regular season. I think they went into the Big Ten tournament, with an expectation to win some games and hopefully win it. So I think they're happy to be there, but yet I think they'll have a workmanlike approach, going into it. But they don't really have experience, in the tournament either. So that's always a little unnerving. Making sure that they're prepared and focused and, able to control, what they can control. I think they heard the outside noise that, they got, screwed on the seed. And, I had Alexis home yesterday there on spring break. And, you just got to keep them locked in to control, prep for Gonzaga, go play well, and then worry about the next day.
When it comes to Gonzaga, as you X's and O this thing, Andy, some things that stick out to you with your basketball analyst hat on about Nebraska's advantages and some concerns against the Zags.
Yeah, I like the matchup there. They're deep and fairly versatile and fairly balanced, but they're not athletically, at the guard spots. They're probably a lot like us in the sense that they shoot it well. They don't really downhill drive. We've struggled with those teams. They have good size and length on the front court. I think our front court is probably more physical, where we might have an advantage there. The thing that concerns me is they really change defenses a lot. They can go to different presses. They can go to some matchup zone. They can play man. And this team has not done a great job of playing against some zone defenses, especially teams that have switched from man to zone to maybe a three-quarter zone press. Those teams have really taken us out of rhythm, and Gonzaga's going to try to do all that. So that's probably the one thing that concerns me. But we have a lot of prep going into it. So hopefully Coach Williams and staff can get ready for the different things that they're going to see on Friday.
Andy Markowski is with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Eddie, to switch gears, I want to get your thoughts on your tournament experience. I know that you were close a few times, and some of the other matchups weren't good during your time at Nebraska. That being said, you were part of 4 NCAA tournaments at Nebraska, and what was that like? How did Coach Nee get you ready for it? And is that something you look at? You're not a big rear view mirror guy, but is that something you think about this time of year?
Yeah, certainly. If you're an athlete, you want to play and compete, at the highest level, and certainly getting to the NCAA tournament is that standard, right? It's kind of what Division I, men's and women's basketball teams and coaches, are evaluated on. So, I think it's important. It's fun to reflect back, your experiences. My kids are asking me, who we played, where we played. It's starting to mean more to them, where you're able to kind of, go back and tell the story of having Arkansas, down by 6 with 3.5 to go and letting them off the hook in Boise. So those are fun, stories to tell and reminisce. But I'm just really excited for the women's team to be a part of it, to hear your name called, have a daughter with a chance to maybe win the first NCAA game, and certainly our family. It's an exciting time for me. It's an exciting time for our family, and I think the Nebraska women and the fans are excited to watch and see what they can get done on Friday.
Andy Markowski is with us, Hail Varsity Radio at Markowski Andy. at Markowski_Andy on Twitter is where you find him. With the tournament in general, how are you feeling about the Big Ten? 9 teams are in. What's the Markowski bracket look like in reference to the Big Ten? How far do you have some of these squads going?
I guess I've become a Big Ten homer. I just I had a hard time finding places where the Big Ten was going to lose. I do think the Big Ten was outstanding. If you look at teams that can really advance to the Elite Eight and Final Four and ultimately win it, I think you have to have pros, right? The saying is you probably have to have 3 pros on your roster to win a national title. So you start, peeling that onion back and you look at a team like Purdue, with a pretty good front line, and then Ivy, which is as good as anybody. You look at somebody like Illinois that has a lineup, on the front line, and Coburn that was probably going to be a hard matchup. So I actually have both of them in my Final Four. I look at a Gonzaga that has, a lot of NBA caliber, and then my fourth pick was Auburn. I think they're immensely talented as well, but it wouldn't surprise me to see Kansas sneak through that regional. So I have Auburn beating Illinois. So does that define me as a Big Ten homer, Chris? I'll ask you.
Auburn beating Illinois.
I have Purdue. Sorry, Purdue beating Illinois.
Okay.
So I have Illinois beating Auburn and Purdue beating Gonzaga and Purdue winning.
I think the nation needs to see it, Andy. And listen, it's 2 programs that still have big dudes, and I know that makes you smile. They have a center that's not a stretch. They've got a guy that's going to bang down low in the paint. I went with Iowa a little further, even taking them over Kansas. I'm going to be wrong, and Fran's going to blow up on the sideline, and that'll be entertaining too. But I didn't have Illinois getting by Arizona. I did not. I think Ohio State's fading. I like Rutgers a lot. I think it stinks they've got to play Notre Dame. I don't see why Michigan gets a bye and Indiana and Rutgers have to play two tough ball games just to say they won a game, So I don't think aside from, and I think just with Chris Beard, I think that might be the difference with Purdue in that round of 32. Maybe I'm wrong. You can hammer me next week on that, but I just think the Big Ten gets a ton of respect. They deserve it, and I just couldn't quite go in. In past years, I've picked pretty heavily in the Big Ten, and it's burned me, my friend.
Yeah. Well, I think last year was hard because you didn't have a lot of the non-conference games, right? You couldn't really see that cross-conference comparison, due to COVID. A lot of the featured events did not happen. This year I think there's a little bit more, data out. I thought the Big Ten, fared fairly well in the non-conference. I think you have some new, some new teams. You still have your Baylors, but Arizona, new coach hadn't been there. I think Texas Tech, just the ability to score, I think matters in the tournament. I look at like them and Houston and some of these teams that have really struggled to score, late in the year. I think that catches up to you. So, listen, I've done this for 30 years, and I don't think I've ever done a good job picking the bracket. It's hard. Matchups change from round to round depending on upsets, but it's why we follow it. It's fun to do, and I guess I've become a loyal Big Ten fan. That's where I spend most of my time watching, those games on TV. So I tend to know more about that league than some of the other leagues.
How was Andy Markowski done in his office pool?
Yeah, the cash portion of this has always been pretty good to me. Some of the auctions where you can find a value pick. I look at like the 12-5. I mentioned Houston, maybe going out early. So some of the auctions that I've been known to participate in, we've been able to catch a couple flyers and do well. So hopefully that luck continues.
That's a great answer. Andy Markowski with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Andy, want to go to Nebraska basketball, and a thought here on some names that that would be intriguing to you, assistant names. And I ask that just because it sounds like there'll be changes, and we'll know more once the Final Four is probably done if there aren't some announcements around the bend. And how tough of a sell is it for Fred to bring in some new blood, considering where his contract situation is at?
Yeah, I mean, that's hard for me to speculate. As he has 3 assistants. Certainly, Coach Sadler kind of moved out of the coaching spot last year. I think we all anticipate, as you mentioned, some changes, right? I mean, you met with the AD. It sounded like Fred had a plan moving forward. So I don't know if that will happen or not. I think the staff that Fred has been able to attract talented kids, whether or not they fit together and were quite able to compete in the Big Ten. I still think there's question marks on that, but the reality of it is, the answer is money. I think the budget that Fred has for his assistant pool is fair. I think he can go out and attract coaches, with the amount of salary that he's able to pay. I think most coaches understand the volatility of the business, and if it's a 1 year or 2 year or 3 year, or if you get it going, maybe you're in the line for a head coaching job, right? If you're a part of a reason why the team becomes successul, and maybe you set yourself up for that next coaching opportunity. So there's kind of 2 ways to look at that, Chris. But I think if they decide to make a change or a coach moves on for another opportunity, I think there would be a long list of people interested because it's Nebraska, because I think Fred is a good offensive mind, and people are always trying to learn from coaches that have had experience and have some NBA contacts and credibility. And in the end, I think they'll pay the going rate to attract a level of coach that can help them.
Couple of jobs open in the SEC. Andy, you spent time as a Division I assistant with Coach Dockich. The Georgia job and the South Carolina job, how desirable are those? Of course, Martin moving on after a Final Four, and Tom Crean moved out of Indiana to land at Georgia, and that didn't last. But Crean, obviously a Final Four with Dwayne Wade at Marquette.
Yeah, both
LSU
coaches,
too,
right? Yeah, you look at Frank Martin's success at K-State, and then he was able to kind of get South Carolina going, get to a Final Four. I mean, Georgia, for whatever reason, just has really spun their wheels. I mean, a guy like Mark Fox, which won a lot at Nevada, couldn't win there, and then Tom Crean, which is as passionate and as motivated as anybody. Couldn't win there. So, those are jobs that, the SEC has gotten better, right? I mean, you look at, the Auburn coming out of kind of nowhere in the last few years. You have Tennessee there, and you have Kentucky there, and, LSU is up for grabs now, but is loaded with talent based on recruiting tactics there. So, I think it's a hard league. I think those jobs are probably a lot like Nebraska in the sense of, you're going to have to really get somebody that can coach. Recruiting is going to be difficult as they don't have a lot of history with either program. But somebody's going to get paid to go in there and try to get it done. And it's there's going to be probably 10, 12 jobs open again. I think that's the pattern that BCS has shown through the last 3 or 4 years, that 3 or 4 years go by and you can't get it done. Coaches are moving on, and even somebody like Frank Martin that's been there a decade, you lose momentum. Athletic directors change, and they want to go out and hire somebody that they vetted, and they want them to help change the trajectory of the program.
Andy, enjoy the NCAA tournament. Best you and your fam, and thanks for jumping on with us today.
All right, Schmade. Thanks for having me.
There he is, Andy Markowski, pride of Ord, Husker standout, and he's going to be wearing the big red sweatshirt on Friday for Nebraska Gonzaga. Coach Kaczinski next to talk Randy Gregory.
And now, And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Let's say hi to Rick Kaczinski. A Tuesday with Kaz, coach of Nebraska and Iowa, of course. Kaz, what do you know?
Not much, brother. Just finally settling into some good, consistent weather, but just, same as usual, man. Just work, man. That's about it, brother. How about yourself?
Well, getting ready for a little roadie down to Arizona, so that's on my mind. But a lot of NFL news to get to. But NCAA Tournament tips off the play-in game. So, were you a big Hoosiers guy growing up, Indiana?
Yeah. Obviously, basketball, different game, different time back then. You look at the '80s and in the Big East, and Kansas, and just all the blue bloods. But big hoop fan growing up. But you asked me what my favorite team was. Probably Indiana growing up, and obviously a lot of respect for Coach Knight and what he did, and then just the obviously with Hoosiers and Indiana basketball and in the state. I think up until '94. In the tournament there, it was like bracket play. It was everybody was in. They didn't have classifications, I think, until '94. So I was at Notre Dame when that was still going on. So that was really cool. But yeah, man. So yeah, I grew up a Hoosier fan for sure. So. But once again, just like college football, I guess you could say I grew up a Penn State fan, but I just like the game. Same thing with college basketball. Pulled for Indiana, but just a lot of teams I enjoyed watching. But man, you go back to '84, '85, '86, that era. St. John, Syracuse, Georgetown.
Yay or nay on the Hoyas? Were you a big Ewing guy?
Oh, I hated Georgetown. hated Georgetown. I don't know. I mean, but I did like Sleepy Floyd. So certain guys I liked, obviously respected Ewing. But in the Big East was a big fan of the Cuse, and then DePaul. I think everybody, when they first got cable, you had WGN. And and then there was a lot of guys. DePaul was recruiting out of DeMatha. And back in Erie, there was DeMatha used to play in the McDonald's Classic Big Four team tournament. So, being third, fourth grade, watching those guys, and then you're watching them. I think Dallas Comagese and, obviously Mark Cummings. I mean, they just player after player. I think DePaul had some sick unis too, like their unis. But Villanova, '85. But I was a gym rat, man. Just like sports. So, but to be honest with you now, I hope Indiana. I know about Indiana right now. I saw Iowa, win that game off the bank, and then kind of took it to Purdue a little bit, but. I was a little shocked. I thought Purdue would be I thought Purdue was going to be the team to beat in the Big Ten this year. But, I know about as much as I read, which is about 3 paragraphs a year on college hoops.
Well, you'll fill the bracket out, and you'll have as good a shot as me, man, or anybody filling out the bracket. Kaz, couple of your guys inking free agent deals today. Malik Collins going to play for Lovey and stay with the Texans. 2 years, $17 million. For Malik, 8.5 guaranteed. And then the comeback story of Randy Gregory, a bit of a plot twist here as Dallas offered, and there was an initial agreement with Randy to Dallas, 5 years, $70 million, $28 million guaranteed for Randy. I think that was between Jerry and Randy. And then Steven came in and wanted to change the language of the contract as Denver's on hold. Well, Randy's headed to Denver for maybe around that same number for years and guaranteed money, maybe a little bit more. But response, couple of thoughts from you on both of your guys as they get a second and third contract.
Yeah, I mean, that's once you get to the league, that's what you're playing for. It's most of the, you get that second contract, and what Malik did, talking about him first, Malik bet on himself. He had that 1 year out in Vegas, and kind of hedged himself, and then took a little less money, and bet on himself to perform, and it worked out for him. And I think I think he's comfortable there. It's moving to another city, moving your family, doing all that. So I think he's in a good spot. He's in a good system, and he knows the lay of the land there. But obviously proud of him, and I know Malik. I know he's got a couple cars, but that's about it, man. He lives very modestly. He won't have to work the rest. He will, but he won't have to work the rest of his life. He's been very conservative, but obviously proud of him. And once again, just a great story. A kid whose father unfortunately had died when I think Malik was 5, and raised by a single mom in a community, and then wrestling career, had people take him under his wing, and obviously the career he had at Nebraska, and he did the same thing. He got out. If he would have stayed, and him and I talked about it, I guarantee you, I'd hedge myself too. If I had a chance to coach him 4 years, he would have been a top 15 pick, no doubt. But he left a year early under that regime, and dropped a little bit in the draft. But once again, he hedged on himself back then. So obviously proud of him, and great for him, great for his family. Dude's a great kid, great family guy, great husband. So. And great father, man. So just extremely proud of him. And same thing for Randy. It's well documented. Who would have taken the chance? On Randy Gregory, if you'd have said 4 years ago if he'd still be playing or in the NFL, I don't think a lot of people would have taken that bet. Got to give a lot of credit to the organization. Jerry Jones. I know a lot of people don't like him, but Randy. That team looked out for Randy. Jerry looked out for Randy, and that's why he's still playing in the league and going to get paid. So, freak athlete. He'll probably looking for a little bit more guaranteed money, which he'll absolutely get. But yeah, man, proud of those guys, and both of them come from a little bit different background, but both faced many different obstacles, man, and both are successful, and because of the people that they've had in their lives. So, not only a credit to them, but a credit to the people that helped them along. But I think also too, Schmitty, it goes back to, not taking for granted how good we recruited and the type of players we had when we were there. I don't think there's been many Big Ten defensive linemen. I know a lot of people just throw that around. I've heard that, guys in Omaha, World Herald talk about a D lineman the last 2 years about this great player. Anyway, he was a solid player, but, all Big Ten, NFL, what these guys do is not easy. When you were watching those two guys on the field at the same time, it's rare. It's going to take a while to get two guys like that ever again on the field at the same time at Nebraska. I hope people understand, and I hope they realize what they had the privilege of watching with those two guys. And those two guys really love Nebraska. I wouldn't be shocked if a guy like Malik, just with his personality, his persona, and his just how he operates. I'd be shocked. One, I guarantee he's probably going to coach, but if he doesn't coach, he'd make a hell of an ambassador for the university. That's for sure. But proud of both of those guys, and it's great for him, man.
Rick Kaczinski's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Rick, that line you're talking about in 14 and in 13, Avery Moss, 5th round, Vincent Valentine. I think Vince was a second-round guy to New England. Randy was a top 5 pick that fell, but got swooped up and Dallas invested in. Randy Gregory tied for the league in forced turnovers last year. Randy's played 50 career games due to suspensions, but 16 and a half sacks. And then, of course, Malik's on a third deal, and he's as good an interior as there is when we talk about just the job that's asked. And you're not always a stat guy on the interior, but he's a guy Lovey wanted to keep, right? And we know how good a Lovey is still revered from a defensive mind standpoint and got another gig in the NFL. So that front four you had, really impressive. And those are guys that some you redshirted, some you didn't, but they played early, but it looks like you developed them. They were really talented too, but give yourself a little credit with the development. I mean, because they were a terror to watch. They were a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it's like everything else, man. It's easy to develop talented players, but I think when also, with the exception of Avery, when you look at those guys, they're all Midwest guys, man. They're all in our footprint, and I think that's a big part of it, man. The further away you go from home, your footprint, you know less and less about a guy. And the more and more a coach will sell you a bill of goods, and I'm not saying that happens a lot, but it does happen. And there's just something about a kid in those type of footprints. And I know there are not many steel mills left in Pennsylvania, but there's still a steel mill mentality in a lot of those towns, and that's where Penn State recruits. Same thing in Ohio. Just that blue collar mentality, and that's the same thing with schools in the Midwest, with the Iowas, the Michigan States, the Nebraskas. I mean, those are the type of kids that you want. You look at the Davis twins. I mean, Schmidt, if we're there in 15, you got in 16. In 16, Collins would have been back. I mean, you had Collins, the Davis twins. Randy would have surely been gone. If Avery was still around, and that was unfortunate what happened to him, but Avery was a freak. I mean, you look at that play he made against Northwestern in 13. Yeah. I mean, that it turned the game, kind of turned the season for us, and that was just freaky athletic, and he was one of probably top 5 talented guys, and then Vincent.
More with Kaz coming up. Randy Gregory, Malik Collins, their payday today. More with Coach Kaz coming up on Hail Varsity.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Part of recruiting is luck, but also, too, man, there's a lot of guys that didn't play in the NFL that were really good players. I mean, Jason Ankra, Kevin Maurice, Kevin Williams, and, that kid from Omaha, that'll always be a mystery to me.
Deshaun Neal?
Be a mystery. That I would have loved to coach that kid. I'm just, like I said, and they call me arrogant, cocky, or whatever. There's absolutely no way that kid wouldn't have been a starter for me. Absolutely no way. Absolutely no way. I remember calling Greg Madison on him. Actually, Greg called me when Greg was at Michigan in Michigan offer. I remember Michigan going in the house. I was going to take a job as an analyst at Michigan, and Greg called me and shoot, they were taking him. They wanted him. Nebraska ended up getting him, but Michigan wanted him. That kid was a great player. Mick Stoltenberg. Yeah. I mean, we had guys. There was plenty there. There was plenty there to win more games than they did, man. And that's what they got to get back to, man. Get back to that footprint. Obviously you got to develop guys, but you also got to get guys that can bend in the knees, hips, and ankles, man. Get rid of these guys. Don't bring me any big belly guys. You can't win with big belly guys. I promise you. So but those guys are right in your backyard, and if they want to get back to playing for something in November and playing in something in December and January, you ain't got to go far, man. It's right in your backyard. You just got to identify them.
Rick Kaczinski's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Kaz, how did you connect with Malik and his personality? How did you connect with Randy? What was your relationship like with each guy?
Well, I knew Randy, both different kids, man. And ironically, they were Randy, obviously a junior college kid, but Malik and Randy were roommates in 2013. And that was probably great for both of them. Two guys from both different ends of the spectrum, inner city, Kansas City, and then Randy's from Fishers, Indiana, and then his folks lived in Macomb, Michigan, and it just completely did. And that's the great thing about football, man. You got two guys completely different backgrounds living together and learning about each other, they're playing together and now successful. But Malik was a guy, really young guy. And when you're coaching long enough, when you're watching tape, you're always comparing guys to what you coached. And when I put Malik on tape, just his explosiveness, his knee bend and playing low to the ground and his ankles and his hips. And I'm like, man, this dude's a waist down player. And he's a 3-down player. And he reminded me of not a high school Mike Daniels, but probably a sophomore at Iowa Mike Daniels. And, and that's what I talk to. When you talk to these guys, this is how I see it. And then you could show them, I could show them Mike on tape and say, hey, man, see how this kid played? And let me tell you, he was way far behind than what you were. Malik came in at 290. Mike Daniels came in at 230 pounds, was a high school tailback and nose guard, and wrestled at 225. And so, and then you get to know the family, you just connect with a kid. And then obviously, when we were recruiting and people were taking shots, and like I told Malik, I said, Malik, you ever hear me say anything bad about any of these other places? No. I said, I ain't got to, brother. I said, they could tear me down. They could tear Nebraska down. I said, in the meat, they're tearing themselves down. I said, I got nothing to say about those clowns. They're insignificant to me, and I think Malik kind of liked that. He was a young kid, but he saw through BS, right? Mm-hmm. And he knew. And the thing that Bo did, the thing that I did, and most of our staff, we told you how you were going to be coached, right? And we told you how we were going to treat you, and we told you that we're always going to do the best for you, and that doesn't mean you're always going to like it, man. And what I loved about Malik, man, we got after Malik, man. Like I told those guys always, there was no way in hell we were going to let a guy with that type of talent an opportunity to be average, man. And there was no way in hell we were going to let those guys be average. And if they practiced average, if they were average in the classroom, if they were average off the field, we got after it, man. And those guys responded. And that's why they became great, and that's why they became successful. And then when they're done playing, they'll be successful also. But Randy was a guy. He transitioned to Randy was a guy recruited at Iowa. Same thing, lanky, raw type of kid, but just freaky athletic. And he didn't make it. He committed to Purdue. We were going to bring him on a visit to Iowa. And then we knew he wasn't going to make it, so we kind of backed off a little bit, and we stayed in touch. And I remember getting a highlight tape. There was a kid out at Arizona Western, nose guard, that ended up going to Alabama back in like 2010 or 11. I think his name was Jesse Williams, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And, so I knew the coach, actually, the coach out at Arizona Western was actually from Joliet, Illinois. So he was a Midwest guy. So he was always, staying in contact with the Big Ten schools and things of that nature. So he sent me the tape, and this was 2012, right when I got here. And obviously, we were losing Baker, we were losing Cam, we were losing some dudes, and Ankara was only 1 year left, and we needed an immediate need. We were going to lose Eric Martin. We needed an edge guy. And I'm like, all right, I'm getting an edge guy. And, I called them, and, we talked to the parents. They came out for the Michigan game. It was a night game. You beat Michigan on TV under the lights, being the environment, the stadium. and the W made my life pretty dang easy for recruiting Randy. And, everybody in the world offered him. And, he shut it down. He shut it down right after that, man. So and then, Dennis and, those folks, Kim, Shell Pepper. I mean, if you want to talk about, I'm going to give a shout out and make sure people know this name, Kim Shell Pepper. Randy wouldn't have made it out of Lincoln, Nebraska with what this person did for him. I mean, you talking about an amazing woman. You want to do an interview on Randy Gregory, go talk to Kim Shell Pepper. I'd never seen a single individual help somebody care for a player more than Kim did. Absolutely amazing job what she did. So please give her a shout out. Make sure people know her name and then the job that she does for those players. So you want to recognize somebody on the 50-yard line for what they've done for Nebraska student athletes. Get old Kim out there. But just getting Randy through and then working with Randy, and then the weight room with Coach Dobson did. But obviously he's just freaky athletic, and then we got him on campus. And then when you have a talent like that, Schmitty, my job was to not screw him up. When you have Adrian Clayborns, when you have Randy Gregory's, you just tweak them, man. You don't overcoach them. You let them be athletes. You don't want to take a Randy Gregory and turn him into a 4'8", 4'9" defensive end. Hey, just do what you do, man. Hey, on your way there, do this. That right elbow tuck. Drop that shoulder. That inside leg past the hip. But teach him the scheme. That's why scheme's overrated. Scheme, anybody can learn. My wife can learn scheme, but she's not coming off the edge against Wisconsin making sacks.
Final thoughts with Kaz on the way with Hail Varsity.
He's in his 30s, but sounds like he was born with a stogie in one hand and a brew in the other.
Now, say my name.
It's Schmitty on Hail Varsity Radio.
I got the body of a taut, preteen Swedish boy.
With coaching guys, and part of coaching sometimes is not overcoaching. So when you got a guy like Randy, that's just kind of what you do, man. But yeah, every kid's story, every recruiting story, it's a little bit different. But great thing about football athletics, you got kids, colors, religion, creeds, backgrounds, you all come together. And man, where else in the world does that happen? Other than a lot of Saturdays in the fall on football fields, man. So that's what I miss. But that's the great thing about sports, especially football, man. So just great to see, but couldn't be more proud of both of those guys.
Kaz, you ever hoop up with Randy one-on-one?
Oh, nah, bro. I don't want to give my secrets away. You can't give them away. I
was wondering.
I got a nice J until I get guarded, brother. Now that I'm guarded, my step back. I just don't create the separation like I used to, and then I panic. You start D'ing me up, I panic a little bit. So lost my game a little bit, but absolutely not. I'll take Malik on the hoop court even today.
Good answer, Kaz. We'll do this again, but we'll catch up soon. Thanks for the time.
All right, brother. Thank you.
Pretty awesome perspective there from Kaz. Malik, his guy, getting that extension, $17.5 million, 2-year deal, 8.5 guaranteed with the Texans to keep playing for Lovey down there in Houston. Randy Gregory was going to be Dallas. Denver swooped in. And Randy Gregory, 5 years, $70 million, around those numbers, similar to what Dallas was offering, but $28 million guaranteed. And Kim Shellpepper, Kaz wanted to make a point to mention Shellpepper and LeBlanc and the life skills folks at Nebraska that are just incredible, and that's really awesome. Two good dudes. We did a lot of interviews with Randy and with Malik when they were in Lincoln, and a few with them when they were out the first rookie year, maybe second year, when Malik and Randy were both in Dallas together. So... Right. Just both guys we root for because of the connection with them when we covered them in Lincoln, and they were always awesome to chat with those Monday media sessions. And the joke was to play Randy one-on-one. And he'd roll his eyes at me, and he's like, Schmidt, you don't want none of this.
Did you?
No, I didn't. We were going to set it up, and then the draft happened, and the decisions leading up to said draft happened, and no. So, but he did, Randy did do an interview day before the draft with me.
Wow.
Should be in there, but that was before all hell broke loose with him, but glad he's in a good spot.
Yeah, and I think it's cool, when he came out of college, I remember hearing first 3 picks, first 5 picks, and it's cool that he's at that point.
Yeah, he's doing all right.
Yeah.
Continual battle, I assume, but good for him and where he's at. Reminder to get buckled up, use your seatbelt. It saves lives, prevents injuries, only if worn properly. Buckle up. This message from the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. A shout out to our our friend Don in Denver listening. Don in Denver listening, and it's like, brother, we got a spot for you. Might have to make that happen. Off to Zona, Will and Elijah. God love you. Thanks.